Topic. The first is taxes. I hear from students and people I work with a lot of times that tax base may have been lost or compromised, but I really don't know the facts on that. What's the deal with taxes in Emiquon?
At Emiquon, as the Nature Conservancy does at most places that we own land in Illinois, we have continued to make payments of taxes, payment in lieu of taxes. But we are 501c3 not-for-profit organization, and as this land's restored, we're not legally bound to pay taxes on the land, but we've been voluntarily making those tax payments to the county because we're concerned about the local communities. We want them to enjoy Emiquon, and we want them to see it as a benefit to their community, a benefit to the river, a benefit to the state. And to help offset any negative impacts, we've continued to voluntarily make payments in lieu of taxes.
Good, good. I do recall that at one point you told me a survey was done asking people in the area what would they like to see from a project like this, and there was maybe the top 2 or 3 things that you always told me. What do the local people want to see from a restoration project like this?
Well, when we bought the property in 2000, and we had a press release and some open houses and things like that to talk with people about our plans for the project, help them become acquainted with the Nature Conservancy and our mission and our goals. And at the same time, we told them that we thought that there were potential opportunities for the local community. We saw that this was going to help us achieve our goals, our biodiversity mission, but we thought that there were a lot of compatible uses that could take place out here that would add to the quality of life of the local communities. So we asked them what they thought they would like to do here. We didn't ask them to require that we build things for them or to, because that's not our mission, but we said if we better understood how the local communities would like to take advantage of these lands, as we go through our planning and our restoration, we can try to not to build walls that make that impossible. Sure. The number one thing was the local communities, or the most often things talked about were access for recreation. When can we fish there? When can we hunt there? When can we boat there? When can we view the wildlife? Sure. So that was obviously very important to the local communities. We didn't think that was an unreasonable constraint on our restoration, and so we're providing opportunities for that. That also builds into a later thing that I'll talk about, and that's compatible economic development. So that was the first thing. The second thing that they were interested in were educational opportunities. That was the one that was second most identified, or was second on their list. And opportunities not only for the young people in this area, but they said, many people said this could be a wonderful educational resource for the region, for the state, for the United States, for the world, to see how restoration can be done and how successful it might be and how important it can be to natural ecosystems. So education was identified as a number 2 priority, and we've worked in many ways on education. We've got an educational plan. As you know, we've partnered with the University of Illinois at Springfield, Dixon Mounds Museum, and others, thinking about what can be done out here to allow good science, good education, training tomorrow's scientists, training tomorrow's decision makers. And we think that if they're aware of the environmental benefits of restored floodplains and a healthy ecosystem, that they're going to make better decisions. So, number 1 was recreation, number 2 was education, and number 3 was compatible economic development. Not only were they very concerned about taxes, but they were concerned about jobs and things like that, and identified early on that, gee, if this turns out to be a great restoration, like we think it will, we being the Nature Conservancy, and by the time we provided some information to the local communities, I think many people agreed that it had a lot of potential. Are there ways that we can capitalize on that economically? Nature-based tourism, for example, was a big one. Will you need guides for fishing or for hunting or for wildlife viewing? Will people be coming to the area and need a place to stay, buying gas, buying supplies for fishing, viewing wildlife, buying meals, and those things? And so we have been involved in the past in tourism initiatives. We worked very closely with the Fulton County Board, the Mason County Board, people in the local area that are working on economic development. We've helped them with some of their planning. We've worked with the Fulton County Tourism Group. We help catalyze getting National Scenic Byway designation for the highway that goes through Emiquon and extends a little bit south of Emiquon and runs clear up to Ottawa. And so we've been thinking about these things and trying to make sure if there are things with compatible economic development, tourism, that are compatible with our ecological goals, that we don't build walls to keep that from happening. And in fact, more recently, with a very generous donation commitment of funds from the Hamill Family Foundation, we're now in the process of building some new visitor use amenities, parking lots, an observatory, a wetland observatory, a lakeside observatory, and a lot of interpretive materials that will allow the public to come here and more easily enjoy the habitat that's out there and better understand the things that they're seeing. So there will be interpretive panels out there helping them identify some of the birds they see, understanding the history of the area, the way that it has sustained humans for 12,000 years, and better understanding some of the restoration that we're doing and how it relates to the river. The Nature Conservancy's goal has been restoration of the Illinois River and some of its former productivity, supporting the biodiversity that was out there in the past, and we think Emiquon can add significantly to that. So we're interested not only in getting people enthused about the restoration that's going on here, but understanding how it contributes to the Illinois River and maybe getting enthused about that as well, and providing that constituency that we need to help inform our decision makers, our legislators, to shape some of the state and federal programs that are out there, to shape management of state and federal lands as well as private lands, our lands, lands that are owned by duck clubs and other folks, to restore the health of the system to a great degree and provide opportunities for people. So we think the educational outreach here with these observatories and the interpretive materials and the education that the university is doing, local schools are doing, other universities are doing, are really going to, in a combined way, make a difference in the Illinois River, and that's what our goal is.
Good, good. My last question, just to hit on, is oftentimes I'm talking to the public or my students, and they will say, Illinois has great land. It's an agricultural state. This was great agricultural land here at Emiquon. How can you justify taking that great cropland and turning it back into, oh, they say different things, a lake, a swamp, whatever, and you know, there's issues of feeding the world and issues of productive agriculture. What do you say to those kinds of people? I think you've addressed it a little bit, but I always have mixed feelings on my response.
Yeah, well, you know, these areas have fed people for a long time, and while we're not harvesting corn off of this land today, we're not making high fructose corn sweeteners and things like that off of this land anymore. Some people are still eating off of this land. There's a modest amount of harvest of fish going on out there, and waterfowl as well. So there's nothing compared to maybe what it was when it was in agriculture, but there are some people are benefiting from food that way. Many of the foods that were grown out there, or many of the products, many of the uses for those products weren't food. You know, there were a lot of other uses as well. When you look at the big picture of agriculture, while this was a very big farm, it's just floodplain agriculture is just a few percent of all the agriculture in Illinois. And so if we didn't farm any of the floodplains in Illinois, it would reduce the farming agriculture land by something like less than 5 or 6%.
So that really helps put it in perspective a little bit. I think when we think about it as one of the biggest farms, and yet compared to Illinois and the Corn Belt, it's possibly it's a much lower percent.
And at the same time, the federal government is taking land out of production. They're paying farmers to restore wetlands. And there's some economy of scale in restoration. It's probably cheaper to restore 6,000 acres of wetlands than it is to restore 1 acre of wetlands 6,000 times. So there's some economy of scale there. There's also some benefits to critters. when you're restoring small wetlands, which often happens with a lot of our state and federal programs, a lot of times it doesn't provide you the landscapes that are needed for a wetland to be fully functional.
Yeah.
So if you have a 1 acre wetland and you have birds nesting there and they get disturbed, or you have birds using that area during a migration period and they get disturbed, they may leave that area. This area is large enough that even if they get disturbed, they may just move around
yeah.
from one site to the other. And year in and year out, there'll be differences in the habitat here, but we'll be able to replicate habitats, so we'll probably always have some water out there. We'll always have some wetlands, and we'll always have corridors between those areas. So there's efficiency and scale of these restorations. So this is a great place to restore, just as it was a pretty efficient place to farm in some ways. And so, you know, as private landowners, we're the Nature Conservancy, a private landowner. It's our choice to restore this land, and private land opportunities or private rights to landowners are pretty powerful in the United States, and so that was our choice to do that, and we hope other people will respect that. And we hope that as people know and understand a lot of the benefits that are coming off of this, maybe not as many economic benefits, but a lot of societal benefits, managing sediment in the river, helping store some of the storm waters, reducing the nitrogen and phosphorus that are going and causing the Gulf hypoxia problem, providing habitat for wildlife, and so on. Some things that are pretty hard to put a dollar sign on, we think the benefits to society are pretty significant. And while it may be, because it's hard to look at these things in dollars, all of these things, so it may be up to the evaluator to decide what they think is important and what the offsets are. We think that there are some pretty important benefits to society out there that are being realized today.
That's very interesting for a non-for-profit organization to take a stand on those kinds of values and select it that way. So, well, thanks a lot for your time.
My pleasure.
And, that's it for now.